On Christmas Eve, the team decided to hold a party in the office. There were not many employees, so they only needed to set the table in the conference room and they could dance in the hallway. During the whole week, the female half of the team decorated the office with balloons, paper snowflakes, and garlands. Men brought and installed the Christmas tree and bought alcohol, fruit, cakes, and gifts. In general, everyone was busy organizing the party. Tiffany worked in the accounting department, so she didn't take part in decorating the office. She worked on the annual report, calculated bonuses and salaries, went to the bank, and managed the funds for the party. Norman worked as a manager and was involved in organizing the party. They hardly saw each other at work and only met at home in the evening. They were not married, but had been living together for 2 years in a rented apartment. Tiffany hoped that this Christmas he would propose to her. When she wondered why Norman was coming home so late, he smiled mysteriously, saying he was preparing an extraordinary gift for her. Tiffany's heart was beating happily in anticipation of the long-awaited moment. Starting the year with a marriage proposal, with creating a family, was like starting a new life. Christmas was only a few days away. In the morning, everyone was finishing urgent tasks. In general, everyone was busy with important things, but they could already feel the holiday approaching. Finally, in the evening, the company's CEO, Thomas, announced that in 5 minutes, everyone should be in the conference room. The holiday table was nicely decorated, the Christmas tree was sparkling, and well-dressed employees were coming into the room. When everyone was there, Thomas asked them to fill their glasses with champagne. He stood up and made a short speech on the results of the year, plans for the future, and announced a salary increase for some employees and a bonus for everyone. Loud applause and joyful shouts merged with the sound of champagne corks popping and women squealing. "Here comes Santa Claus! Merry Christmas!" A tall and young Santa with a long white beard, red cheeks and nose, dressed in a red coat and hat, said loudly. The music started to play, and the entertainment program began. Tiffany smiled, too, and couldn't remember where she knew that voice from. Although the artist had lowered his voice to bass, she had definitely heard it before. His eyes were hidden beneath his fake fluffy eyebrows. Tiffany couldn't see his face. Fun music was playing. There were fun contests, laughter, and dancing. The alcohol relaxed her mind and made her feel good and carefree. Tiffany plunged into the fun. When there was a short pause so that everyone could take a break from dancing and eat something, she noticed that she didn't see Norman anywhere. She didn't see him at the table, or near the Christmas tree, or even in the hallway. Tiffany decided to find her beloved. She reached the stairs to the restroom and was about to return when suddenly she heard a low moan from below the stairs. It was not a moan of pain, but of pleasure. Tiffany silently walked down the stairs. Then she stopped, leaned over the railing, and peered under the stairs. She immediately pulled back. Her heart raced so hard that it felt like it was about to pierce her chest. She had only watched it for a second, but now that scene flashed before her eyes in slow motion, like it was a frame from a movie. There was Norman. He was standing with his back to the stairs. His jacket was on the floor. He moved slowly, pressing some girl against the wall, and her red dress was pulled up to her waist. Black curls fell over her face. But Tiffany already knew it was Tracy, the CEO's assistant. The girl pressed her back against the wall and froze. The scene of the betrayal flashed before her eyes again and again. Her heart was pounding and her thoughts were confused. Tracy's long moan sounded, and Tiffany came to her senses. She walked upstairs, stepping on the toes of her shoes to keep her heels from clacking. There was laughter coming from the hallway. Music. A few people were dancing in the hallway. Tiffany entered the locker room. put off her high-heel shoes, put on her boots, and walked down the main stairs. The door slammed shut behind Tiffany. The night was frosty. Snowflakes were falling slowly. The streets glittered with the lights of Christmas trees, store windows, and garlands. People hurried home with bags of gifts bought for family, friends, and loved ones. Tiffany walked slowly through the city. Everything collapsed in just a moment. The holiday, the mood, the expectation of happiness or family. She began to freeze. The champagne didn't work anymore. She put the hood of her fur coat over her head and immediately shielded herself from all the lights. She wandered through the night city, occasionally looking up to see where she was. Tiffany didn't immediately realize that a car had stopped by the sidewalk, had honked at her. Tiffany stopped. She was alone, in a terrible condition, in the middle of an empty city at night. She was about to run, but then Santa Claus got out of the car, or rather, someone dressed as Santa Claus. The red coat was still there, but the hat and beard were gone. This guy looked funny and silly with his fluffy white eyebrows and mustache, and Tiffany smiled. And then she laughed, and couldn't stop until tears came out of her eyes. The young man laughed at first too, but stopped when he saw that Tiffany had tears in her eyes. "Get in, please. I'll take you wherever you say." Tiffany was so tired and freezing that she got into the car. She warmed up and began to calm down. Finally, she felt better. The young man turned the mirror toward her, and Tiffany was horrified at her appearance. Black mascara was smeared across her cheeks. "Why didn't you take off your beard and eyebrows?" she asked, trying to wipe the mascara off her face. The man opened the glove compartment, pulled out a pack of paper tissues, and offered them to the girl. Tiffany thanked him and began to clean herself up. "Are you feeling better yet? I need a special solution to get my eyebrows and mustache off. If I try to just tear them off, it will hurt, and I might lose my real eyebrows. I'll come home and remove it. So, where do you want me to take you?" he asked Tiffany, who had finally calmed down. "Excuse me, I can't remember where I know your voice from, but I don't know you." "Wait a second," he said, and after a pause, he continued, "Dear audience, welcome back to Love Radio. I'm on the air with you today, your favorite radio host, Alex." Tiffany laughed. "You're a radio DJ. I remember," she said. "And what's your real name? And why were you playing Santa Claus at our party today?" "It's a pseudonym. My real name is—" At that moment, Tiffany saw an SUV racing toward them at a frantic speed, skidding into the oncoming lane. Alex hit the brakes and twisted the steering wheel, but they couldn't avoid the crash. The girl covered her face with her hands and screamed. She didn't hear or see the crash. The beeping sound was too loud. It pulled Tiffany out of her short-term blackout. She saw Alex lying on the steering wheel, still with that ridiculous eyebrows and mustache. Blood was dripping from the corner of his mouth. A man ran out of the SUV. He tried to open the car door, but no luck. He pulled out his cell phone and said something. Tiffany saw it all like a silent movie. She was deafened by the incessant sound irritating her nerves. She moved her legs and arms, and everything seemed fine. Then she unbuckled her seatbelt and struggled to push Alex's heavy body back against the back of the seat. The sound of the honking car stopped, and Tiffany heard a groan. She said happily, "Thank God! You're alive! We need an ambulance!" She thought she was shouting, but in fact, the words sounded only in her mind. A police car was rushing toward them. They managed to open the door on Tiffany's side, helped her out, then pulled Alex out, put him on a stretcher, and took him to the hospital. The hit was on the driver's side. In the hospital emergency room, A police officer recorded Tiffany's testimony after her wounds and scratches were treated. They gave Tiffany a sedative and told her to stay at the hospital until morning, while Alex was taken to the operating room with multiple bruises and fractures. What a terrible day! I was expecting a miracle and happiness this morning. I'm so stupid. There are no miracles in this world. Why, Lord, why? Tiffany was standing at the window. Everything inside her was screaming, outraged at what had happened. It was snowing outside. It was beautiful. Except it was heavy on her soul because of betrayal, pain, injustice, and resentment. Tiffany didn't know if she would ever get out of this mess. The medication began to take effect, and she fell asleep. In the morning, they let her go home. But where was her home? She didn't want to see Norman, but there was no way to avoid the conversation. Tiffany was walking down the hall and met the doctor who examined them yesterday. He said the young man she had been in the accident with was doing well. "Can I see him?" Tiffany asked, not really understanding why. "Yes, but a little later. He's in intensive care now. He'll be transferred to a regular ward soon, and then you can see him." "Then I'll wait here," and Tiffany sat down in a chair in the hallway. 2 hours later, nurses rolled a gurney with Alex on it. He tried to smile at Tiffany, but failed. "I'll come to see you tomorrow," Tiffany said. Tiffany walked out of the hospital. The snow sparkled in the daylight and crunched under her feet. The events of the previous night had changed the way she felt about Norman. "Just don't cry. He will beg for forgiveness, but I can't forgive him. I have to be strong. He's a man, and he cheated on me, so he should leave, not me." "What about work?" "I can't see him, but I'll think about it later," she decided, and closed her eyes as she got into the cab. The sedative was still working. Tiffany opened the door to the apartment, and Norman immediately ran out to meet her. "Where have you been all this time? I've called every hospital." "All of them?" Tiffany asked calmly, taking off her boots. "That's strange. They didn't tell me someone was looking for me." She walked into the room and sat on the couch. "You were at the hospital?" Norman sat down next to her without looking her in the eye. "Yeah, I took a cab to go home yesterday, but we got hit by an SUV. She flipped back her hair, showing the wound on her forehead. "So if you had really called the hospital, they would have told you I spent the night there." "Okay, well, I didn't call, but I was worried. I didn't know what to do." "Seriously? And yesterday, under the stairs with Tracy, you knew what to do." Tiffany grinned. "I'm sorry. I don't know how it happened. I was drunk. She took me there herself and started it. She almost attacked me." Norman tried to excuse himself in an apologetic tone. "How am I supposed to live with you now? Some other attractive girl will attack you and you'll cheat again. I can't trust you. Just go away. Pack up and go away." "Go where?" Norman hadn't expected the shy and quiet Tiffany to say such determined and sharp words. He thought she was convenient, quiet, undemanding, and obedient, and she turned out to be stronger than he'd expected. "Wherever you want to go, to Tracy or anyone else, just leave." "All right, I'll leave. I'm happy it turned out this way. I'm tired. I'm bored with you. It's your own fault." He locked himself in the bedroom. Tiffany laid on the couch and stared at the Christmas tree. She could barely hold back from crying because of the hurtful words. They had decorated the Christmas tree together 2 days ago, laughing and making plans, but it all collapsed in just one night. "I'll pick up the rest of my stuff later," Norman said as he walked out of the bedroom with his suitcase. He slowly put on his jacket, then his boots, cleaned his boots with a wet tissue, then looked in the mirror, hoping Tiffany would change her mind and stop him. But she didn't even turn her head, She only flinched when the front door slammed shut. Why do people say so many words about love, persuade, make promises, and then when feelings cool down, they just slam the door and walk away? Tiffany cried and fell asleep without changing her clothes. She woke up in the evening, took off her dress, and threw it in the trash. She'd never wear it again anyway. It's better to get rid of things associated with bad memories. The next morning, she got up calm and refreshed. She only had a slight headache. She made soup and went to the hospital. Alex was happy to see Tiffany. He looked much better already. "Haven't had homemade chicken soup for ages," he said when he saw the jar the girl had put on the nightstand by the bed. Tiffany was supporting Alex's head, helping him eat. "Your appetite is good, which means you'll get better soon. By the way, you were about to tell me your real name." "Oh, right. Alex is short for Alexandros, and I'll answer your other questions right away. I'm an artist. I work as a radio host, and during the Christmas holidays, I work at parties. It actually brings me good money. I'm saving up to buy an apartment." "Okay, now it's your turn to tell me about yourself." "My name is..." No. Tell me why you escaped from the party." Tiffany told the whole story. Suddenly, the door to the room opened, and a tall, gorgeous brunette who looked like a fashion model walked in, or rather, flew in, covered in a cloud of expensive perfume. Tiffany could only dream of such perfume. She rushed over to Alex and kissed him on the lips, ignoring Tiffany. "Don't, Nikki. We're not alone." Alex looked at Tiffany with embarrassment. "Fans of your attractive voice have found you even here?" She looked at Tiffany arrogantly and unfriendly. "No, she's not a fan. She was in the car with me when the accident happened." Alex tried to stand up for Tiffany. "Oh, really?" Nikki wanted to say something else, but then Tiffany stood up. "I should go. Goodbye." When she left, Alex looked at Nikki. "What the hell are you doing? Why did you pretend to be my girlfriend? We broke up." "Come on, don't worry. She'll come back if she loves you." "What are you talking about? We just met yesterday. I was driving her home." "And she accidentally brought you your favorite soup?" Nikki continued. "Okay, I'm sorry. I think I should go too. Feel well. I won't bother you again." Tiffany spent Christmas alone in front of the TV. She had a glass of champagne, then another, and fell asleep quickly. In the morning, she went to the hospital to see Alex. It was sad to spend Christmas alone. "I can only imagine what it was like to spend Christmas in the hospital," she sympathized. "Thank you for visiting me. I'd like to explain Nikki's behavior." "Don't," Tiffany interrupted. "Don't say anything. You really do have a very attractive voice." Alex raised an eyebrow in surprise. "I'm sorry, but I overheard your conversation after I left," Tiffany apologized. "Just tell me, are you feeling better now?" "Yeah, I'm getting better every day. And when you come to visit me, I don't have any pain at all. As soon as I start walking, I'll be back on the radio." After the Christmas holidays, Tiffany came into Thomas's office and placed her resignation letter on his desk. He put on his sunglasses, read it, and put the paper aside. "I know the reason you're going to quit. You're a good accountant, I can trust you, but I can't trust the manager and the assistant. So, I suggest you stay. It's harder to find a good accountant than a manager. By the way, Daniel will be my new assistant. Keep working and I'll take care of the rest." "Thank you, Thomas." Tiffany happily headed to her workplace. The work routine began. Tiffany got home late every day. She didn't have the energy to go to the hospital. Besides, Alex was getting much better. "Why didn't I get his phone number? I could have called him," she thought. "I'll go to the hospital this weekend." On Sunday, she took the bus to the hospital. There were very few passengers. The driver's radio was on. "Dear friends, this is Love Radio, and I'm..." Tiffany went to the driver's cabin and asked him to turn up the volume. The casual chatter was interspersed with music. "It's been a long time since you've heard my voice on the air. Did you miss me? I've got into an accident with a very pretty girl. I would like to order a song for her. Tiffany, I'll find you. And don't forget to make your loved ones happy with Love Radio. Order songs for them by calling—" "Stop!" Tiffany shouted to the driver. She hopped off the bus and dialed the radio. "Hello, do you want to order a song? Introduce yourself and tell us who you are ordering a song for. Don't worry, we are taking notes of all your wishes, and your message will go live," a female voice answered. "Alex, this is Tiffany. Thank you for the song. I'll be waiting for you tonight at 8 p.m. at the place where we had the accident." Christmas miracles happen if you believe and go towards them. It doesn't always happen immediately, but you have to prepare for miracles. When you let go of the negative things, offenses, and outdated relationships, new ones will surely replace them. And may everything be well in your life.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me and began to speak. "There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only." Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. "I'm leaving." After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, is something wrong?" Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look, "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day." Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. "So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick? What's wrong?" "Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike! What have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.